Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Avadreshu Nityaṁ bhāgavata-sevayā Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike Gurve Gauri Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Namaha Pankajanaභaya Namaha Pankajamaline Namaha Pankajanitraya Namaste Pankajangriye Vasudeva Paraveda Vasudeva Paramakha Vasudeva Paragyanam Vasudeva Paramtapa Vasudeva Paraveda Vasudeva Paramakha Vasudeva Parayoga Vasudeva Parakriya Vasudeva Paramgyanam Vasudeva Paramtapa Vasudeva Parodharmo Vasudeva Paramgati Krishna Tvadiya Padapankaja Panjarantam Adyaiva me Vishatu Manasa Rajahamsa Prana Prayana Samaye Kafavata Pittai Kantavarodana Vidhau Smaranam Kutaste. Hare Krishna. Dear worshipable devotees, thank you so much for joining. We are reading Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and read it to text number, I think 7 or 8. Unfortunately, we couldn't record the last session. Which was the last day when we had was Friday, I guess. We couldn't record the Friday session because of some technical issues. But nonetheless, we will continue from the next verse where we stopped on Friday from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 9, chapter number 12, the dynasty of Kus'a, or who was the son of Śrī Râmacandra. So we were talking about various kings in this dynasty, and we read till text number, who remembers, 7 or 8? I think it was 7 or 8. I'll just read the translation for 7 in case. From Maru was born a son named Prashruta. From Prashruta came Sandhi, and from Sandhi came Amrashana, and from Amrashana a son named Mahashvana, and from Mahashvana Vishvabahu took birth. Okay. So a lot of names are there in this chapter, which is chapter number 12. Just we discussed that why Shukdev Goswami is mentioning multiple names to share that how authentic these scriptures are. They're telling about the past kings, the present, and the future upcoming kings, and not just future 1 or 2, multiple kings who would be coming. Tataha prasenajit tasmat takshako bhavata punaha tato brihad palo yastu pitra te se marihataha. Translation: His Divine Grace is Swami Prabhupada, Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. From Vishwabhanu came a son named Prasenjit, and from Prasenjit came Takshaka, and from Takshaka came Brihadbala, who was killed in a fight by your father. Very nice. Who is you here? Who is you? Your father referring to whom here?
Parikshit Maharaj.
Very nice.
Parikshit
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Shukdev Goswami is speaking to Shri Parikshit Maharaj, because Brihadbala was killed by Abhimanyu, who is the father of Parikshit Maharaj. Okay, so let's see. Next, text number 9. Anyone wants to read?
I can read Prabhuji. Hare Kṛṣṇa devotees, Dhanvat Pranam, all this is Śrīla Prabhupada, text 9. Ete hikshaku bhupala athito sinbhi anagatan brihada balasya bhovita putro namna brihadrano. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Śrīla Prabhupada ki Jai. All these kings in the dynasty of Ikshaku have passed away. Now please listen as I describe the kings who will be born in the future. From Brihadbala will come Brihadrana. So the dynasty here is divided in the past and in the future. So up to now we heard the names of the dynasty, Brihadbala, who is killed by the Abhimanyu, and now the future dynasty will come after this Kali Yuga will be told by the Shukdev Goswami. Back to Prabhuji. Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Okay, let's read about the future descendants. Anyone wants to read? Text 10. Yes, Sudhir, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna devotees, Dhanvat Pranam, Śrī Prabhupada, text number 10. Urukriya sutastasya vatsvaradho bhavishyati prativyamostato bhanur divako vahini pati. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada ki Jai. The son of Brihadrana will be Urukriya, who will have a son named Vatsvaradha. Vatsvaradha will have a son named Prativyoma, and Prativyoma will have a son named Bhanu, from whom Divaka, a great commander of soldiers, will take birth. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Back to you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Quite straightforward. A lot of names are here. Text 11. Yes, Prabhu, you want to
Yes,
read?
Hare Kṛṣṇa Prabhu, Hare Kṛṣṇa devotees, Dhanvat Pranam, Jai Śrīla Prabhupada. Text 11. Shahadevas tato bira brihadasya atha bhanuman pratikasya bhanumata suprakrita atha tatsuta. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada, Jai Śrīla Prabhupada. Translation. Thereafter, from Divaka will come a son named Shahadev, and from Shahadev a great hero named Brihadarshya. From Brihadarshya will come Bhanuman, and from Bhanuman will come Pratikasya. The son of Pratikasya will be Supratika. Hare Krishna Prabhu, back to you.
Hare Krishna. These are again future kings. Future means at that point where this Shukdev Goswami is talking to Parikshit Maharaj. So for some of these could be past for us, right? Because this conversation happened 5,000 years back. Text 12, anyone?
I can read, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, please.
Hare-
Karthik Prabhu.
Hare Krishna devotees, Dhanvat Pranam, all glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. Text 12. Bhavita marudevota sunakshatrotha puskara tasyantariksas tadputra sutapastad amitrajit. Translation by His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Thereafter, from Supratika will come Marudeva. From Marudeva, Sunakshatra. From Sunakshatra, Pushkara. And from Pushkara, Antariksha. The son of Antariksha will be Sutapa, and his son will be Amitrajit. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Take over.
Very cool. Thank you, Prabhu. There are a lot of names here and will continue to be there. So we just read these sections a little quicker because there's no purport. So we don't have to dive any deeper in this. Text 13. Yes, Lakshay, Prabhu. Babu Prabhu, to read.
Yes, Prabhuji. Brihadrajastu tasyapi barhis tasman kritanjaya rananjayastasya sutta sanjayo bhavita tata. Translation. From Amitrajit will come a son named Brihadraja. From Brihadraja will come Barhi, and from Barhi will come Kritanjaya. The son of Kritanjaya will be known as Rananjaya, and from him will come a son named Sanjaya. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Very cool. Thank you, Lakshay Prabhu. Let's read text 14. Vasudhi Mataji, want to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Text 14. Tasmat chakyatha suddhoda langalas tatsutaha smritaha tata prasannayajat tasmat shudrako bhavita tataha. Translation by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. From Sanjaya will come Sakya. From Sakya will come Shuddhoda. And from Shuddhoda will come Langala. From Langala will come Prasannajit. And from Prasannajit, Shudraka. Back to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Next verse, anyone? Ranako bhavita tasmat surathastanayastatha sumitronama nishtanta ete barhadabalan yavaha. From Shudraka will come Ranaka, and from Ranaka will come Suratha, and from Suratha will come Sumitra, ending the dynasty. This is a description of the dynasty of Brihad Bala. Brihad. Anyone knows the meaning of Brihad? What's that? Brihad.
Brihat means big.
Wide.
Brihad means big, yes. Brihad Bala. Strong, power, right? Bala means strength. Have you heard what's Brihad Mridanga? Prabhupada used that term. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used that term. What is Brihad Mridanga?
book distribution.
Yes, book distribution. Because a mridanga, no matter how powerful, even if Vihan Prabhu is playing, only people up to 100 feet can hear, maybe 50 feet, 100 feet, 200 feet, right? 500 feet, 1,000 feet, right? Can we hear more than that? Okay, say even if it's on a loudspeaker, 1 mile. But the power of book distribution is so that it will cross over continents. And that's what Prabhupada did. Thousands and thousands and millions of books are being distributed. So that sound of Brihat Mridanga is amazing. So we should try our best, especially this Bhadra Purnima is coming. And then very soon Gita Jayanti will come. So Gita Jayanti is time for distribution of Gita. Bhadra Purnima is time for distributing Bhagavatam. Because one who takes Bhagavatam on this time or gifts it to someone, friend, relative, brother, mother, father, sister, anyone, will certainly achieve the transcendental topmost destination back home, back to Godhead. So that was just a side point, talking about the word Brihad. It has no connection to the word, except for the word Brihad. The point is there are 31 kings mentioned. After Brihad Bala, 31 kings are mentioned, and then after that, he didn't have children. So basically the dynasty. No. So I was just thinking in my mind. So the Abhimanyu and Brihad Bala story happened probably around 5,000 years ago. So each of these kings had a lifespan anywhere between 80 to 100 years, right? Approximately, or the ruling time in the Kali Yuga. Lifespan is 100 years, as per Shastras. So basically the dynasty stopped around 2,000 years back, as per kind of an guesstimated calculation, just to give some understanding of what we are in, or where 31 kings are mentioned. And can we imagine like 31 kings, and that to specific names that no ordinary person can tell, right? His son will be him, his son will be him, he will be the ruler, he will be the warrior, he will be this. Their specific names are mentioned. That means these personalities are not ordinary. That's why they are in the Bhagavatam, Dynasty of Kus'a. And the Bhagavatam is not ordinary. The speaker is not ordinary. Everything is transcendental. Modern science cannot tell the present facts or the past facts. They cannot even explain that properly. And there are new and newer theories and newer, munir matir bhinne. Every person, every scientist has a different perspective. Every so-called researcher has a different perspective and different outlook to things. But Shastras, are telling so specific. That's something very, very noteworthy, I feel here. So let's see, next verse, text number 16. Anyone wants to read this verse? Vijaya Mataji, want to read? This is actually the last verse of this chapter, so let's complete it.
Yes, Prabhuji, I can do. Ishra Kunamayam Vansha Sumitranto Bhavishyati Yatastam Prapya Rajanam Sanstham Prapnanti Vai Kallahu. Translation. The last king in the dynasty of Ishraku will be Sumitra. After Sumitra, there will be no more sons in the dynasty of the sun god, and thus the dynasty will end. Thus end the Bhagavatam Puran of the 9th Canto, 12th chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled the Dynasty of Kus'a, and son of Lord Râmacandra. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Mataji. So the dynasty will end, and with this description, this conversation is happening in the future tense for Shukdev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, but for us, 5,000 years hence from that point, it's already past tense. Now a question: who will revive then? Who will revive the Ishvaku or Surya Kula, Surya dynasty? And when?
Modu, after the Kali Yoga.
Maru, at the end of the Kali Yuga. Yeah, towards the end of the Kali Yuga, he will revive. So, and is he still living or is gone? He's still living. And we discuss the power of mystic yoga, he's still living. So, just to quickly summarize this chapter, a lot of names in this chapter. The dynasty of Lord Ram, son Kus'a. A lot of names are mentioned. I won't talk about those names. But the reference of Maru is important. He is going to revive the Sun dynasty at the end of the Kali Yuga by begetting a son. And also important to note here that how Bhagavatam is telling about the future 31 generations and how Maru will. So now think about it. This will happen 432,000 years later, or even at the end, let's say at least 400,000 years later, right? But Vyasadeva is telling about it. Shukdev Goswami knows about it. Isn't that amazing? 400,000 years later, this will happen, approximately. So this is extraordinary.
So I'm trying to understand here. So the lineage continues until the end of Kali Yuga, Prabhuji, or it broke and then it will, revive again at the end of Kali Yuga?
Yeah, it broke. After Sumitra, there will be no more sons in the dynasty of Sun God.
Right. So at the end, then how should we understand that? How will it start again?
Because we read earlier, if you see text number 6. Having achieved perfection in the power of mystic yoga, Maru still lives in a place known as Kalpagrama. At the end of Kali Yuga, he will revive the lost Surya dynasty by begetting a son.
So he is still living. That's what we.
Yes, by the power of mystic yoga, he still lives in Kalpagrama.
Okay.
This place is also mentioned.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's what. Thank you.
And Prabhupada gives a purport also. The Yoga Siddha body. That's the only verse actually practically purport. Just giving a purport to this chapter to explain how he is still living. And then we also discussed that how some people take samadhi in Gangotri, and then at the time of Kumbh they come out from Allahabad in Triveni Sangam. So a lot of siddhis, mystic powers are there. People are still there, very far and few, but they're there.
Yes, understood. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Kṛṣṇa, Prabhu.
Yes, please, Mataji. Yes.
Yeah, just like sun god is still there. We see sun every day at the end of Kali Yuga also, he'll be there. There's another many years to go before this Manu will go away. Back to you, Prabhu. Hari Bol.
Hare Kṛṣṇa. Thank you so much, Mataji. So I think we can move on to the next chapter. And then Mataji, you want to read the summary of this one?
Sure, Prabhu. Then chapter 13, the dynasty of Maharaja Nimi. This chapter, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This chapter describes the dynasty in which the great and learned scholar Janak was born. This is the dynasty of Maharaj Nimi, who is said to have been the son of Ikshvaku. Can you please move? Yeah. When Maharaja Nimi began performing great sacrifices, he approached Vasishtha to be the chief priest. But Vasishtha refused, for he had already agreed to be a priest in performing a yajna for Lord Indra. Vasishtha therefore requested Maharaja Nimi to wait until Lord Indra's sacrifice was finished. But Maharaja Nimi did not wait. He thought life is very short, so there is no need to wait. He therefore appointed another priest to perform the yajna. Vasishtha was very angry at King Nimi and cursed him, saying, "May your body fall down. May your body fall down." Cursed in that way, Maharaja Nimi also became very angry and retaliated by saying, "May your body also fall down." As a result of this cursing and counter-cursing, both of them died. After this incident, Vasishtha took birth again, begotten by Mitra and Varuna, who were agitated by Urvashi. The priests who were engaged in the sacrifice for King Nimi preserved Nimi's body in fragrant chemicals. When the sacrifice was over, the priests prayed for Nimi's life to all the demigods who had come to the arena of Yajna. But Maharaja Nimi refused to take birth again in a material body because he considered the material body obnoxious. The great sages then churned Nimi's body, and as a result of this churning, Janak was born. The son of Janak was Udavasu. The son of Udavasu was Nandivardhana. The son of Nandivardhana was Suketu, and his descendants continued as follows: Devarata, Brihadrata, Mahavirya, Sudruti, Drishtaketu, Haryasva, Maru, Pratipaka, Kritarata, Devamedha, Vishruna, Mahadruti, Kritirartha, Maharoma, Swarnaroma, Rishavaroma, and Shiradhwaja. All these sons appeared in the dynasty one after another. From Shiradhwaja, Mother Sita Devi was born. Shriddhavaja's son was Kushadhwaja, and the son of Kushadhwaja was Dharmadhwaja. The son of Dharmadhwaja were Kritadhwaja and Mitradhwaja. The son of Kritadhwaja was Keshi-dhwaja, and the son of Mitra-dhwaja was Khandikya. Keshi-dhwaja was a self-realized soul, and his son was Bhanuman, whose descendants were as follows: Satadyumna, Shuchi, Sanadhwaja, Urja Ketu, Aja, Purujit, Aristanemi, Shrutyayu, Suparshvaka, Chitraratha, Shrimadhi, Samaratha, Satyaratha, Upaguru, Upagupta, Vashwananta, Yudha, Subhashana, Shruta, Jaya, Vijaya, Rita, Shumaka, Vita, Havya, Dhriti, Bahukashva, Kirti, and Mahavashi. All of these sons were great self-controlled personalities. This completes the list of entire dynasty. Hare Krishna. Back to you, Prabhu. Really straightforward.
Thank you so much, Mataji. It's another branch of Ishwakukula, the dynasty of Nimi Maharaj. Actually, for those who have the hard copies of Bhagavatam, all this is actually nicely mentioned at the end also. So the genealogical tables that nicely explain the dynasty of Nimi and Raghukula. So all these at the end. You also have the hard copies, you can go through that as well. Okay. So we will start this wonderful chapter from text 1. Anyone who has not yet read today wants to read?
Hare Kṛṣṇa, Prabhuji can read.
Yes, please.
Hare Kṛṣṇa, everyone. Shri Shuka Uvacha Nimir Ikshvaku Tanayo Vasistam Avratartvajam Arbhya Satram So Apiyaha Sakrena Prakrutosmibo. Prabhuji, can you please hold on? Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Srila Sukadeva Goswami said, after beginning sacrifices, Maharaja Nimi, the son of Ikshvaku, requested the great sage Vasishtha to take the post of chief priest. At that time, Vasishtha said, my dear Maharaja Nimi, I have already accepted the same post in a sacrifice begun by Lord Indra. Thank you, Prabhuji. Back to you.
Hare Krishna. This shows that how one time Krishna was invited by Bahulashva, another person, devotee, how he could accept the invitation of both, or what to speak of two. He could accept the invitation of 16,000, or what to speak of the invitation of 60,000, 16 million and 16 zillion at the same time. But Vasishtha could not perform yajna at the two places simultaneously. It's an interesting point to note here, right? He was requested by Nimi. At the same time, he was requested by Indra. So His Grace Sarvabhauma Prabhu was one time mentioning, maybe, he said he thought Indra will give, more donations, so he went there just out of joke. So, but in short, he said, well, sorry, I can't do. Well, Nimi Maharaj is also not an ordinary soul. He is this Kula of Ishvaku Kul. So let's see, when he could not accept the invitation and he accepted the invitation of Indra, that means he could not go to Nimi Maharaj's yajna. So what happened? Text 2, anyone? I think everyone, you can take the seconds. Take Prashadam seconds. Bhagavatam is the Prashad of the Supreme Lord. So,
I can read Prabhuji.
yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Namaste Pranam, all glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. Text 2. Tam nirvartya gamishyami tavan mam pratipalaya tushnim ashid grihapati sho apindra shayakaran makham. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Śrīla Prabhupada ki Jai. I shall return here after finishing the yagna for Indra. Kindly wait for me until then. Maharaja Nimi remained silent and Vasishtha began to perform the sacrifice for Lord Indra. Back to Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
So, interesting situation that he couldn't do, at the same time he didn't want anyone else to do, right? Of course, we are not judging Vasishtha, but there is a great lesson here, I feel. Sometimes one could be so falsely attached to position, power, fame, and one could feel that, hey, why is, although I can't help this person because of their time situation, but at the same time, if someone else tries to help, that person may feel offended at how dare, to encroach. This is actually serious. And it could happen in spiritual life also, if one is not careful. Rather, one should be grateful. Actually, it'd be more relevant to talk about it in the next verse. So let's read that, because the story will unveil. Let's read text 3 also.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I have a quick question. Prabhuji, you said both, Nimi Maharaj, who is again, Janaka, and also Ikshvaku family. So both Râmacandra and Sita Devi are from Ikshvaku family, Prabhuji. That's how we need to understand.
So this Janak, the father of Sita Devi, is Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which will come later. In the purport, that Janak is Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam.
Correct.
Well, ultimately, yes. Yes. Well, Sita Devi and this Kalpa Bheda also. Sita Devis, they're not ordinary people. Yes, they may take birth in some dynasty or X dynasty or Y dynasty or Surya Kul or Chandra Kul, but ultimately it's all transcendental.
Okay.
So they are not born from XYZ parents. They appear, right? The Supreme Lord appears, and so are his entourage. So
thank you. Yeah, understood.
Okay. Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Hare Bo.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
if we read Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says that 2 million ago Lord Râmacandra appeared. And if we see Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, we see that 27 Chatur Yugas ago, Ikshvaku dynasty started. So if those two, if we put together, that's a lot of years in between when they appeared. Just a comment, an additional comment. Thank you, Prabhu. Sorry, Paul.
Sorry, Mataji, I did not understand what is the significance here between the 2 million years, Mataji.
So it's just an additional comment to put it in perspective of time. So here, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is starting from sun god, which he is a Manu. When Prabhupada says he is the Manu in the era of, he becomes the next Manvantara, Manu Avtara. And from Manu, this dynasty is starting. Right? And then if we go to Bhagavad Gita chapter where Sun Lord says that, Krishna says that I instructed the science to Ikshvaku, in that purport, Prabhupada elaborates that Lord Ram appeared on this earth 2 million years ago. So there is a lot of years between. It's just an additional comment, like not trying to answer your question.
Okay. Between what, Mataji? You said
between when Lord Ikshvaku, when Sun Lord God is Vaivasvat Manu is mentioned, and between when Ram and Sita appeared, there's a lot of years have passed. They are there in the same dynasty, but what I'm trying to say is that there are millions of years after, millions and millions of years after the first Ikshvaku Maharaj gave birth to the sons. So after many, many, many kings and Chatur Yugas. That's all.
I can read, Prabhuji. Nimis chalam idam vidvan satram ara bhat.
You want to put the screen? Thank you.
Hare Kṛṣṇa devotees, stand up pranam, all praise to Śrīla Prabhupada. Nimis chalam idam vidvan satram ara bhatat mavan tvigvir aparastavan Nagama Yavata Gruha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Maharaja Nimi, being a self-realized soul, considered that this life is flickering. Therefore, instead of waiting long for Vasistha, he began performing the sacrifice with other priests. Purport. Chanakya Pandita says, Sariram Kshana Vidvamsi Kalpanta Sthayono Guna. The duration of one's life is in this material world may end at any moment. But if within this life one does something worthy, that qualification is depicted in history eternally. Here is the great personality, Maharaj Nimi, who knew this fact. In the human form of life, one should perform activities in such a way that at the end of he goes back home to Godhead. This is self-realization. Hare Kṛṣṇa Prabhuji, wonderful purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So as we know, and especially in this pandemic, we know that how delicate the life is, and it's like a small drop of water on a lotus petal. Anytime it can fall, and a small bubble, anytime it can burst. So Maharaj Nimi is thinking that my aim is to go back to Krishna, go back home to Godhead. So I don't want to wait until that Vasistha. So I think that's what he is thinking here. Instead of waiting, he started performing the sacrifices with other priests, because he very well know that in this material world, nothing is permanent. That's what I understood. These are Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Kamala Dala Jala Jivana Dala Mala. As a drop of water on the lotus petal is very flickering. That's what is mentioned here. Chalam, chanchalam, in the mind. Today here, tomorrow there. Today someone could be very healthy, as the Prabhu mentioned. Tomorrow something can happen. So one should not wait. One cannot buy back one moment of one's life, even by paying millions and zillions of dollars. So one should not delay on the path of Krishna consciousness, back home, back to Godhead, the path of self-realization. Already we have delayed a lot. Already we have kind of delayed. Some of us started at 20 years, some at 30 years, some 40, some 50, whatever our different ages are. We're already quite late. And what to speak of this lifetime? We have wasted, talking about myself, I have wasted millions and millions of lifetimes in thinking, okay, next lifetime I'll take to Krishna consciousness. Okay, next lifetime. Okay, next. But Nimi Maharaj is saying that in bhakti, we should be hungry. We should not delay. Sense gratification, we should delay. The mind wants to buy something for sense gratification or do something for sense gratification, we should delay. Okay, maybe I'll buy this next year. Maybe I really don't need it. Maybe it's just to impress the society. Maybe it's to just keep up with the Jones or keep up with the Patels. Maybe I'll take it later. Maybe I don't need it. Maybe it will just take my precious time and energy. So I'll do it later. Material life, material sense gratification, procrastination is good. But in bhakti, we should be hungry. Lalyam iti mulyam. In bhakti, we should not procrastinate. It's a nice lesson here. Okay. Let's read next verse. Canto, you want to read?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Kṛṣṇa, everyone. Text 4. Shishya vyavatikramam manam vikashyatam nirvatyagato guruhu ashapat patata deho nimihi pandita maninaha. Translation by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada ki jai. After completing the sacrificial performance for King Indra, the spiritual master Vaivashvata returned and found that his disciple Maharaja Nimi had disobeyed his instructions. Thus, Vasishtha cursed him, saying, "May the material body of Nimi, who considered himself learned, immediately fall." Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. So, Nimi's intentions were not to offend Vasishtha, right? Nimi's intention was to basically not waste time, but Vasishtha cursed him. Of course, we are not saying who is right, who is wrong, but the lesson here is we can learn some lessons. These are all great personalities. We are not commenting about them, but we are learning lessons from this text that sometimes because of quickly making decisions, we may end up making the wrong decisions. I like this point. Sometimes we are attached to being right than doing right. It's a very deep statement which one devotee shared. We should not be attached to being right. We should be attached to doing the right thing. So being right means that what I have suggested is the right thing to do. Doing right means, okay, this is my perspective. Let's hear everyone's perspective and let's do the best thing for the temple, for the community, for the family, whatever, in our company or whatever situation we may be in. That's called trying to do the right thing rather than, even if it's not my suggestion, even if it's totally opposite to my suggestion, it's fine. Because maybe I didn't think of something important. Maybe I didn't see a perspective which was very important to consider. So that really helps us to open the horizon and to see things in the true perspective, in a complete perspective. And that's very essential for a family, community, friends, God brothers, God sisters, because we're all different and we are all having different opinions and we have different backgrounds and different cultures and different everything. So we should be attached to doing the right thing in the spirit of cooperation, in the spirit of loving devotional service, not being the right. Sometimes, the suggestion proposed by someone could be good, sometimes it could not be good. But if you're open, okay, I'm open, and let's hear in the humble spirit, in the spirit of doing the right, then we can save ourselves. We in Bhagavatam multiple times we see that sometimes decisions made in a haste are not the best decisions. In the Ramayana also we see Sugriva and Vali's fight. Vali made a decision in a haste without complete knowledge. It was not the right decision. And he lost his life because of that. So we should attach to do the right, not being the right. Any other comments, any additions, corrections, questions anyone wants to have in this first few verses?
So you said so both are right, Prabhuji, because he is thinking that, one is spiritual master and one is the disciple, but even the disciple is Nimi Maharaj is thinking that how to reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead immediately. So that's why we are telling both are right, Prabhuji?
Yeah, I'm not commenting on this situation, who's right, I'm too small to comment on this point, but just a lesson that sometimes, when intentions are pure and decisions made in a haste could lead to wrong conclusions. So, yeah, that's my just thought here. Any other comments anyone has?
Prabhu, I just want to share something like
Please.
similar kind of incident. We see that in Mahaprabhu's pastime. Most likely all of you know, there was a devotee, his name was Hridayananda. He was a disciple of Goridas Pandit. And Goridas Pandit, actually, he was living in Ambika Kalna. Just little background. So one time Mahaprabhu and Nityaṁ Prabhu came to his house and he actually served them so nicely. So when Mahaprabhu and Nityaṁ Prabhu wanted to leave, then Goridas Pandit said, no, please don't go, you stay here. So Mahaprabhu and Nityaṁ Prabhu said, we will stay here, but we will make our deities and they will go. So the deities were leaving and Goridas Pandit was bewildered. He ran behind the deities and said, no, don't go. Because Mahaprabhu and Nityaṁ Prabhu was standing in his altar. And by the way, these deities are still there in Ambika Kalna. So this long story short, that he has a disciple named Hriday Chaitanya. So one time, Goridas Pandit, he actually went for preaching and he was not coming back. And by this time, the time of Gaur Purnima festival came, and so Hriday Chaitanya was waiting, and then he found that his spiritual master was not coming. So he arranged the whole festival himself. And Goridas Pandit came and he was very angry. Actually, he was angry outward, but inward he was very happy that Hriday Chaitanya did the festival according to his mood, Goridas Pandit's mood. But Goridas Pandit was very angry with Hriday Chaitanya, and he said, how dare you, you didn't take permission from me, and get out of here. So he threw him out from the temple, and Hriday Chaitanya felt very sad because it was not his desire that he didn't want to disobey, but what can he do? He came out, and the deities also came out of the temple and running. And Goridas Pandit was running behind the Mahaprabhu and Nityaṁ Prabhu's, and he was running with a stick. And the deities came and entered into Hridayananda Prabhu's heart. And from that, thenwards, his name was Hriday Chaitanya. So I was just thinking the same pastime, like here we can see, I mean, we cannot say who is right or who is wrong, but the main thing is service. We can do our service. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Prabhu, back to you.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for sharing that sweet pastime. Very nice. Okay, so we will pause here and continue tomorrow with the next verse. Canto Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Purana ki jai, Śrī Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveta Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Jai.
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyascha titanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo. Hare Kṛṣṇa, thank you so much. Hare Bol.
Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Hare Krishna.